Hey there everyone, by now you should have mastered drawing basic cubes, floating cubes, in 1-point perspective. What we're going to do now is work on more complex forms, not just squares or rectangles. So we'll start off basic, a little bit more complicated than a square or rectangle, but still simple. So what we'll do is we'll draw a triangle first, and please draw along with me. That goes. Doesn't have to be a perfectly equilateral triangle, clearly. So now, as you all know, we go back to the vanishing point. All lines going back in space go back, converge, meet at the vanishing point. Now, we all should have kind of mastered this kind of setup, going back to the vanishing point. But now we have to remember the second rule of perspective that we learned, which is cutoffs are parallel to the original edge. So you're not just going to draw kind of a random horizontal or vertical line. That's not going to work out. You want to make sure it's parallel to your original edge. You're basically drawing the back side of your shape. This is the front. We're drawing the back as it's going back in space, and it stays the same. It kind of reflects what you see in the front. So if this angle, whatever the angle it is kind of in that direction, my back line is going to be in that direction. So I slide it and keep it kind of equidistant, parallel, as I slide as far or as short as I want it to be. Okay, just make sure it's parallel. Once you got kind of a space that you like, you draw your line. Where that intersects, the converging line in the center there, I mark so that I know, I understand I have to now kind of do my second cutoff here. Parallel to the original edge. So I'm going to do this so I can see. Slide, 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 keeping it parallel. And then I draw my cutoff line. Erase out the unnecessary lines, because right now it looked like it was tied up to that vanishing point. We want to let it loose and let it free to float. And we have a floating triangular prism. Kind of maybe looks like a block of cheese or a weirdly tilted tent, since I didn't make it very equilateral, or isosceles, if you know your triangle terms, that is. So not so bad. Again, understanding that concept that your cutoffs are always parallel. Now, say I want to do a multi-sided polygon. We'll see how many sides I make. Now, guys, when you're drawing something like this, I don't expect it to be kind of perfect or equilateral in any way. I think I'm making an octagon. Stop sign. But by no means is it a regular octagon, meaning that all the sides and angles are the same. It's kind of close. It's just definitely not a regular polygon. Okay. Now again, always corners that are close. I'm making these nice and big. I might see this. I'm not sure. I'm going to maybe see that. I always do the closest one first though. Well, that definitely didn't draw. Still didn't. There we go. At least I didn't break my pencil yet. Hope I didn't jinx myself. Probably did. Oh, I'm gonna do the other side. That metal piece of my ruler, I wind up always drawing on it with my pencil. It's kind of silly. And it doesn't draw, obviously, on the paper. Okay, so I did see all of those, which is awesome. Now, again, depending on how you draw your shape, if you're kind of following along with me, everything's kind of dependent upon its relationship in with the vanishing point. So if it's a little bit over or whatever, you might not see all of these lines. So don't worry if you don't. Just draw what you should see. I'll start off with the easy one because that's nice and straight and vertical. So I keep it nice and straight and vertical, however big or short I want it to be, and I draw it. I'm basically mirroring what I see. I have two intersecting points now. Here, what I'm going to do, like this, slide it till I meet there, and draw that one. Here, I'm just following the front side of the shape and mirroring on the back. That's all it is. Oops, I went a little bit through there. It's okay. Now this is going horizontally across. I'll do it this way so you can see better. And then you erase all of those unnecessary lines. Doesn't want to be tied up to the vanishing point. It wants to be free. Free that form. Now guys, keep in mind, I'm making my little dots really big for you all to see. And it's also kind of just a guide. Once you get the hang of perspective, you don't need to keep drawing dots. It's just kind of a way of me reminding myself, okay, this is an important kind of intersection point, or I know I need to either connect or do whatever I need to do. So that's why I do that. So here's two kind of more complicated forms that have different angles. I'm going to draw a circle. Circles, remember, curved shapes are a little more complicated because there's no hard edges. What you do when you have a curved shape is you always line up the vanishing point to the most kind of outside point. So you wouldn't do something like this, it would be going through your shape. You want to make sure that it's just basically almost grazing your shape there. Again, making sure that vanishing point is lined up to the most outside part. And then you have that. Now, if I did something like this to cut it off, it's not mirroring what I see here. What you want to do is copy as best you can the curve, okay? That kind of from here to here in a smaller form because it's getting smaller as it goes back. So let's erase that. I shouldn't have drawn so dark. So think about it, kind of maybe follow it with your pencil without drawing on it to get an idea of the curve that you're going to have to do. And then you're going to do your best kind of mirror of that curve. And it might take a couple tries. You might have to erase the first few, and that's okay. And then you erase your extra converging lines. Whatever goes beyond that cutoff gets erased so that it's floating. So here were some three kind of slightly more complicated than squares or rectangles. What I want to do now is go over some letters with you. Now, you shouldn't copy the letters I'm doing. What I want you to do after you watch the video is try some letters that are in your name, because we're eventually going to be working on drawing our names. So it's silly, you know, I'm going to do an H for hedges. You don't really need to do an H unless you have an H in your name. Okay, so just watch with me for this one. Normally, oh gosh, by the way, guys, I don't know what I'm thinking. Remember in the beginning of the year, we talked about stick figure letters. I'm gonna erase this. I was gonna freehand it, but I want to go over something with you all. So you kind of draw a stick figure letter, right? And then you bulk it up. You can't, I've seen some kids when they were challenging themselves to create more complicated shapes, doing a stick figure letter and then having their lines going back, but then it's not bulked up. You can't really do anything with that. So what you do is you have your stick figure letter nice and light. And then if you remember, and I'm just going to freehand this, you can always go back in with a ruler if it's not straight. You all remember this? You got your skeleton or stick figure. Okay. Now, if you're not good at drawing straight lines, like I said, I suggest you go in with a ruler. For the point of practice, it's okay if it's not completely perfect. So, it's a very wide H, but my stick figure was wide. So now, again, those corners that are close, don't forget insides. I think I got all of them labeled that I need to, okay? Always do the closest one first. Now notice with this one in the corner, I'm lining up to that vanishing point. However, once it hits my letter, I stop. But I'm not drawing a random diagonal line. It still is meeting up at the vanishing point. It's just going behind this shape that's in front, so I don't see it past there. Same idea with this one. I'm lining it up to the vanishing point because you don't just draw a random diagonal. Oh, Miss Hedges drew a line here, so I'm going to, but it's not going anywhere. All of your lines that go back in space should always be converging, meeting at the vanishing point. So it technically does if I were to draw it, but I'm not because I don't need to see it. So I think I have all my lines now. Now, slightly more complicated, right? But I know how to cut off a vertical line. I'm gonna start there, though this isn't that vertical because I didn't use a ruler. Line it up, keep it parallel. This is nice straight vertical. My cutoff is nice straight vertical. Where that intersects right there, I'm going to go across. Now here's the thing, guys. Make your lives easier. Understand that these are in line with each other. So look what I'm going to do. Here to here, right? This guy and this guy, they're going to be lined up just like these two. So I'm going to draw that. Where that intersects, guess what? That's going to go up to here. Because, again, I'm mirroring what I see on this side. This dot is going up to this dot. This dot needs to go up and make a dot, I guess, right? We don't have one. Straight up and down vertical. Straight up and down vertical. Where that intersects, I take a look. What's going on next? Going over, over. So horizontal, kind of horizontal. Again, free-handed H. I'm not going to go through the H, the front of it. It just stops right there. And that little guy right there gets erased. It's hard to erase that. And we have our 3D floating H. So that same trick that I did kind of lining this up would happen with other letters that have similar kind of endpoints, like an E or even a C. Speaking of C's and S's, I'll do an S for you right now. Try not to do a curved S. I'll just show you. So say I have a curved S right here. And I'm freehanding this all. It's not going to be pretty. Just letting you know. It makes it a little more difficult because, again, you have to do your cutoffs, kind of dealing with the curved edge. And it can get complicated. I'm not going to lie. So if you do an S, say, I mean, it kind of looks like a 5 too, right? Something like that. And again, I'm freehanding this, using my skeleton, making sure my edges, see these guys here, are kind of in line with each other. Then what you will do, always focus on the close corners first. But I've labeled all mine. But focusing on the closest. Again, when we get to a point where it's going to be going through the line, still always converging at that vanishing point, but stopping once I hit that edge, okay, of the letter. You don't want to ever be drawing through your letter. That's really important. So again, you shouldn't be, unless you have an H and an S in your name, you shouldn't be copying these letters. You should be trying some letters of your own. Okay, I got them all. So now, same trick as I kind of talked about here, where you have kind of matching sides. here and here are lined up, right? So what I'm going to do, I line up my ruler, decide how big I want it to be. Guys, try and keep in mind too, when we do our final project, you're going to want all of your letters to be kind of the same thickness. So think about that when you're doing it. I made my H kind of this thick. I'm going to make my S similarly thick. And I'm not going to measure it. I'm just going to eyeball it. Where that meets that line, I'm going to make a little mark. But I also understand that this, because they're the same, is also going to be lined up. Does that make sense to everyone? Why I'm doing that? Now here and here are important because again, I see this going back over to the right. See, lined up. Where it hits the letter there, I stop. Here, horizontal. As long as you all understand, remember there's two basic rules in perspective here. Well, maybe three. Draw lightly, which I'm not doing. All of your lines going back in space converge, meet at the vanishing point, and all of your cutoffs are parallel to the original edge. Okay, so what the goal here is, you're going to obviously, hopefully you worked along with me to create some slightly more complicated forms that are floating. And then I want you to start working with some letters of your name, okay? Because that's, again, where we're moving towards. So it makes the most sense to practice that, okay? Everyone, good luck.